404-873-2247. Come see us.
The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
Ladies and gentlemen, the journey for focus, clarity, and mental mastery is about to begin. Live from WSIC Studios on the shores of Lake Norman, the show that gives you the tools to think sharper, sleep deeper, manage stress, and unlock your full mental potential. This is Your Brain Matters. And now, with over 30 years of brain science, more than 70,000 brain analyses, bringing neuroscience to everyday life, here's your host, Dr. Tim Royer.
Welcome, everybody. Here we are. Your Brain Matters. I can't think of a more important 45 minutes than this time together, because your brain is the most important thing that you possess. It matters to you. It matters to your kids. It matters to your spouses. It matters to your employer. It matters to your 401k. It matters to everything, your health. Doesn't it matter? Don't you think, Aim?
Your brain matters. Yep. That's just the bottom line. And didn't we say this was the year of the brain?
I think it is the year of the brain. I forgot.
We declared it to be the year of the brain. So we need to go to town on it.
We have to.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
How's your brain working?
It's a little sluggish. I'm going to be fair, and I'm going to say to everyone that I know my brain matters, and it's not in the best place ever.
You mean the iPhone in the refrigerator?
Found the iPhone in the fridge. That's not good. And also, I've lost my wallet this week.
Right.
So
and you've got to fly someplace, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do.
So we need a license.
So many people do know that my dad passed away.
Yes.
And I'm doing well with the things I need to do for that.
Yeah.
But you can't gloss over the bereavement process and the how your brain goes through loss and things like that. So it's a very interesting journey. I'm trying to be willing to go on the journey and not push back and not fight against it. But I did have to laugh a little bit when I found the phone in the fridge, and then this week the wallet is lost. Like,
Just
I
completely.
mean, so it's important to realize that, and also just my back got hurt, which is not normal, and I'm like, so a lot of things, there is a book called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah.
And we love that book, and we believe everything about that. But I mean, it's just a very simple way of saying, like, it's all connected. So it's all driven by the brain, and that's where we're coming all the way back to Your Brain Matters.
Yeah, it does. And rather than see those things maybe as like negatives, it's kind of like having a dashboard that you can see, oh, my focus is a little bit off. My body's not as resilient as it normally is. And the thing about the brain, we say this a lot, is it adapts. And so as it's kind of pivoting to kind of deal with maybe this more emotional side, this loss, it requires energy, right? Like that's energy. And it says, you know what? I don't really care about where she puts the iPhone. I want to put the energy in processing this, working through that, and also, you've spent the last 3 years just completely on point trying to manage. And a lot of people out there, you have things going on in your life that like are making you hyper vigilant all the time, just the situation. But when that changes, you think, oh, it's all this energy is going to come back. But actually your body kind of says, oh, okay, now it's time for me to gain some rest and recovery, right?
Yeah. Doc was explaining that to me just when I was looking for my wallet. And, he was helping me understand that, my brain had been doing a lot of extra things for me behind the scenes, just in being readiness for the things that my parents might need, or the phone call I might get, or what the caregivers might be experiencing. So I was like, my brain was processing things that weren't even happening because I just was trying to be prepared for those things to be happening.
Yeah.
But also that is something that, we have talked about before too, is the what ifs and the what abouts.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think a lot of what I was doing for my mom and dad, I mean, a lot of it was very enjoyable. And
You're
I
right.
don't regret 1 minute of the time or the effort that it involved. But I think without me knowing, there was a lot of what ifs and what abouts going on that were using a lot of
Consuming
energy.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, like, with those being gone, you're either going to be like, oh, I can do 50 other things, or you're going to be like, I feel like I am exhausted now
Hmm.
because I've been doing that for a while.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
That's
It's interesting. It's really, really important to just let it be what it is.
right.
And that's what I'm trying to do.
Hmm.
Yep.
And
So,
let the brain just kind of get kind of its rejuvenation. Well, we are back to our second part in a 3-part series about anxiety, where we're going to first recognize things. Then this is the reveal. Like, how do we understand about anxiety and how it works? And what you're talking about, while it's not like overt, like anxiety disorder, it's stress on the nervous system and your brain's trying to recover. Um, and we've got some different things going on locally. We just finished this lecture last week up in Virginia on the Flourishing Conference. We got I'm actually going to Michigan next week to do it at the State of the Child lecture, which is cool, and
mm-hmm.
a couple different things like that. But for our month or 3-part series on anxiety, we want to offer Tsunami, the book Tsunami, and that is if you call 616-341-2299 and just request that. Amy and I wrote this book together, and it's about the epidemic of anxiety and depression. So before we kind of close out this section, we want to do Your Brain Matters quote.
Hey, you might as well give me your
Uh,
phone because mine's dying
You
right
just
now.
died, and I sent you the quote.
It apparently didn't charge while it was in the fridge.
There you go. So here's the quote. This
So,
is from, I told you, got a big golf outing this week. Hopefully
mm-hmm.
Doc will win the hat. Of the 4 guys, I'm the one with the least number of wins. So I desperately am seeking winning the hat. Last week we heard from Dale, who's one of my 3 best friends from high school. This week we get to hear from Rodney. Rodney is an entrepreneur. In high school, he was the leading goal scorer for soccer in the state of New Jersey, and also a phenomenal basketball player. This guy is one of the greatest athletes I've ever seen. Hopefully he doesn't perform this weekend. Aim, why don't you read what Rod has to say?
Okay. Rodney says, the brain is the motherboard of my body. Nothing works at its peak if it's not functioning properly. It enables everything I do on a daily basis, from learning to decisions to problem solving to controlling my stress levels and creativity throughout every day. Even my physical response to things is not the same when my brain is not in its healthiest spot. As a small business owner, you have to be able to do many different capacities in a day, and if your brain is not operating at a super efficient pace, your whole body will suffer the consequences throughout the day.
Let's go.
Thank you, Rodney. We needed that.
We did. We did.
Don't go anywhere. Dr. Tim Royer will be right back with more ways to make your brain work for you. Your Brain Matters on WSIC. Local starts here.
Well, not quite as warm as the last few days, but still pretty comfy around Lake Norman. Partly cloudy, low 60s for our afternoon. We'll get chilly again overnight as we drop off into the low 30s. A couple of us around the lake may drop to around freezing. And then we're much cooler to finish out the work week for our Friday. Plenty of sunshine, but high temperatures only in the upper 50s. That's your forecast from the Surf Pickleball and Kitchen. I'm WSIC meteorologist Chase Myers.
Prioritizing your health is one of the best ways to take care of yourself. From routine visits to the joys of pregnancy to the illnesses that stop you in your tracks, Iredell Health System will be by your side. Learn more at iredellhealth.org.
Here's your WSIC community calendar,
Valentine's Day is officially on the horizon.
which means it's time to start planning, whether that's date night, girls' night, or just treating yourself.
Exactly. Let's take a look at what's coming up around Lake Norman.
We'll start in Statesville with a fun, feel-good event the whole family can enjoy. The Valentine's Day themed market happens Saturday, February 7th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at 109 East Water Street in downtown Statesville.
Shop local bakers, artists, and creators. Enjoy Valentine's vibes. And yes, there's even a mini petting zoo with baby goats.
Plus, a Valentine's-themed photo area, a special $5 strawberry matcha, and 20% of all sales benefit Bella's Backpacks, helping children in need.
If you're looking for a Valentine's weekend date that's a little more mysterious,
The Murder Mystery Dinner featuring Sigmund Theatrical takes place February 13th and 14th at 7 p.m.
this fully interactive experience turns a museum setting into a living whodunit where guests become detectives, uncovering clues hidden among priceless artifacts and marble halls.
It's elegant, suspenseful, and perfect for couples or friends who want something different this Valentine's weekend.
Find tickets and full details at mooresvilleevents.com/ourtownstage.
Looking ahead to Galentine's Day?
Grab your besties and your biggest tote. Ella Blue is hosting a Galentine's shopping event, Friday, February 13th from 4 to 6 p.m. at 221 Griffith Street in Davidson, featuring boutique shopping, fun finds, and the perfect excuse to celebrate with friends.
For even more Valentine's events, local happenings, and community news,
Visit liveworkplaylkn.com today.
that's liveworkplaylkn.com.
We're back with more of what your brain's been craving: balance, calm, and better thinking. Your Brain Matters with Dr. Tim Royer. WSIC Local starts here.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We're talking about anxiety this month, and we all experience anxiety. It's part of being a human being, but nearly 30% of people experience a diagnostic level of
Wow,
anxiety.
just
So that's
unbelievable.
huge. If we had another person in this room with us, that would be one of us that had diagnostic levels of anxiety. So it's a big deal.
Yep.
And Doc mentioned in the very beginning of this show today that we would love to give away the book Tsunami that we wrote together about anxiety and depression, because they're just so prominent all around us. And so if we experience that, or if someone around us is experiencing that, we want to know more about it, right?
Right.
Because if we're just like, if it's just a word we're tossing around, we're not going to really be very helpful to ourselves or to anybody. So we're going to go further today, and we're going to talk about a few of the foundational facts about anxiety. So I'm just basically going to ask Doc questions because this is more in his field of expertise. So give us a couple of the foundational facts about anxiety.
Yeah, so what we want to be looking at in anxiety is like, when does it cross over into a disorder? So the traditional way to look at that is to use something called the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. And in the DSM-5, there's a whole section referred to as the anxiety disorders area. And in there, you're going to find all these different disorders. And so typically a psychiatrist or somebody who's making a diagnosis, a physician, they might use something called the ICD-10. But you're using these manuals, and these manuals kind of give you different symptoms that you go through and you check, and they also give you a time frame. And they say, well, how long have they experienced these symptoms? Because, you know, you might have a symptom just for one day, but it needs to last a while before it to be an anxiety disorder. Just because you have, you know, one panic attack or one time you're a little obsessional about something, that doesn't mean you necessarily have those disorders. And so there's a time frame. So it kind of outlines that in the DSM. The problem with that is that that is all downstream. We're just looking at the behaviors, and so we need to look upstream. Now, my original training was as a neuropsychologist, so trained in testing.
Yep.
And so we would, as psychologists, do more testing to see, okay, what's going on here, what's causing these kind of things. And so some of the traditional things are there's anxiety checklist. So you go beyond just the DSM, but different types of checklists that are out there. They're kind of gold standards for that.
Mm-hmm.
Also ones for sleep disorders, depression, those kind of things. So you have those checklists, but you're still way downstream, right? So then I was taught how to do more objective personality testing where somebody is compared to a norm of a lot of different people in their responses to things. So something like an MMPI, which is 450 questions for the short
Oh,
version.
yes.
Okay, that's for the short version.
Whoa.
Is one of the best tools out there. Not everybody's going to get an MMPI, but when you really want to dissect the nuances of personality and anxiety and depression and social things, MMPI is great. There's also something called an MCMI, and there's some other one of these like very detailed norm-based things that have been around for years. Then it starts to get a little bit more sophisticated. Now you go up another level to say, okay, they're answering questions. That's a little bit beyond just the checklist. They're being compared to all these statistical norms, definitely more advanced. But now we want to like get behind the conscious and into the unconscious. Okay, that's where it starts to get a little tricky. Okay, that's when you need like 3 years of this one type of assessment tool. That's how long I had to spend to learn it. And that would be projective testing. So things like the Rorschach, which everybody like, is that really something? Yeah, it actually is something. It's a very sophisticated measure for seeing responses to projective testing that show you what is going on underneath and how the person sees things that they're just splotches of ink, but to them they projecting in their unfinished business, and that's where you start to pick up maybe anxiety, maybe depression, maybe a personality disorder. But typically people are super anxious. They tend, with making it very simple here, they tend to see a lot of movement in the blots. So the blots don't move, okay?
Mhm.
But they see dancing this, moving that, because their world is just so internally tumultuous, and they project that out. Or there'll be other things that you see. Then we start to go even more like with little kids. We do a ton of like drawing work, and there's things in the drawings. Like I love something called a figure in the rain drawing, which the rain symbolizes stress, and the person, how do they manage the stress, tells you some things about their coping mechanisms, right?
Yep.
Storytelling with kids, those kind of things. But you're trying to figure out like what's under there. And so that's, from an anxiety standpoint, these things are very, very helpful for doing that.
This is great. This is just bringing up so many memories for me
Yes.
of you and your early years of practice and how you took this stuff that you learned in the classroom and began to use it in practice, and how I remember you being like literally thrilled with how accurate this
Yes.
was actually, because when you talk about the checklists and those things, you're getting just a lot of spray as far as towards a dartboard.
Yeah.
It's just spraying all over the place. Someone feels this way one day, they're doing this another day. And it's just wild. But when you start coming in with that underlying projective stuff, it's just you lose all that crazy spray, and things start coming into that target, and you start being directed so much by what this person is drawing or seeing. It really, to me, is much more respectful to that person,
Yes.
because you are taking in their responses versus the initial checklist thing is just like, oh, mom fills out the checklist, teacher
Yes.
fills out the checklist. And then if it's a child, like they're basically just, they don't have any say in the matter. But when you start doing a drawing with them, and I've watched Doc do this with a kid, and it'll give you goosebumps. Like this kid is just drawing. I mean, they're just drawing. It's just what kids do. But what they're drawing is telling the story.
How they're drawing it.
And how, how.
What colors they choose. And
Yes.
it's fascinating.
And I've seen Doc say like, wait, tell me a little bit more about that part that you drew. And then the kid is talking about it. And it's just awesome because they are being able to express something that they couldn't express in their normal setting, but through the drawing, they could do that. And also that for adults, the MMPI, like just answering 450 questions will we'll get to the bottom of things at some point. But yeah, so those are really, really cool. You talked a little bit more also about going to the next level,
Yeah.
which is physiological markers.
Yeah, let me give you one more example of the projective stuff because you got me thinking.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
so good. I
We
mean, we used to think it was just a party game because Tim would, have these ink blots laying around the house and, but no, it's serious stuff. It's statistically significant. And yeah, go.
Yeah, it's crazy because I was at a children's hospital and I get consulted up to the ICU a ton where these docs are just confused. Like, we don't know what's going on. And this case happened one time where there was this 12-year-old and she was playing softball and something happened in the game and she just kind of fell down on the ground and she couldn't walk anymore. And so they flew her, airlifted her in, put her at ICU. She'd been there 3 or 4 days. They tried all kinds of testing, and this girl couldn't walk. She just could not walk. And they said, well, let's call in Neuropsych. And I call it throwing cards, but I bring my Rorschach cards up. And I came in, and there's 10 cards. And I got to card 3. I mean, it wasn't even in there 4 minutes. I mean, and I could immediately, I knew by card 3, significant level of anxiety. This girl has been traumatized in some way, very likely sexually abused. And what we're seeing is her brain has shut down her body more from a psychological, emotional standpoint. And I remember I walked out like 5 minutes later and I said, this is not physiological, this is psychological. We need to find out what's going on. And they're like, how in the world did you know that? Did she tell you that? I said, no, she didn't tell me that. But her unconscious told me that. I could see it in the blots. I could see it right there. It was like live and in color for me. I'm like, whoa, I didn't need her to tell me that. Now, eventually we needed to figure all that out. And the social work team came in and, but I could see the projection of the unconscious into those things. And that opened for me what was really going on. So the other things that we do a lot now at Royer Neuroscience and Inner Armor, we still do some of those things, but we really work more even further upstream, like you said, to the physiology. So things that tell us a lot are respiration rates. Unconscious respiration rates can unlock the door. And the consistency or inconsistency of breath, heart rate variability, what's going on with low frequencies, high frequencies, ideal frequencies. What the vagus nerve is telling us can tell us a lot about anxiety.
Yeah.
Sleep patterns, huge. Getting a sleep study unlocks the key into the unconscious, and you can pick up wakenings and all kinds of stuff related to anxiety. And then the ultimate thing is the EEG. Like, I don't need you to tell me you're anxious when your EEG is lit up like a Christmas tree. Or you tell me you're not anxious, but I'm like, well, that electrical current in your brain could light a small city. Right? I know that you're anxious, right?
And that's the furthest upstream.
Yes, we're way up there. We're beyond checklists. We're not in Kansas anymore. Okay?
Right. And these are objective measurements.
Yes.
So it's easy to compare them to the masses. So then you're very statistically strong when you see an outlier. So it becomes really, really strong information to be able to say, what is this? Is this anxiety?
Yeah. So the take home is that we're looking at all these levels. Don't just do the 5-minute checklist and be done with it. Your brain matters. It's important that we look at all these dynamics to truly understand the brain.
Discover what your brain's been trying to tell you. Your Brain Matters with Dr. Tim Royer will be right back. WSIC, local, starts here.
Well, not quite as warm as the last few days, but still pretty comfy around Lake Norman. Partly cloudy, low 60s for our afternoon. We'll get chilly again overnight as we drop off into the low 30s. A couple of us around the lake may drop to around freezing. And then we're much cooler to finish out the work week for our Friday. Plenty of sunshine, but high temperatures only in the upper 50s. That's your forecast from the Surf Pickleball and Kitchen. I'm WSIC meteorologist Chase Myers.
Jay White here from Central Line Realty. We're right in the center of North Carolina, and we put you at the center of everything we do. If you're selling a home, buying a home, or adding doors to your rental portfolio, put the team at Central Line Realty to work for you. Go to centrallinerealty.com and let's get started.
Make your work easier with Eagle Rentals of Troutman and Statesville. Eagle Rentals has generators, heaters, fans, painting equipment, floor care equipment, pressure washers, lighting equipment, and lawn care equipment. Plus, Eagle Rentals has construction equipment like forklifts, bobcat loaders, backhoes, excavators, and more. Reserve online at eaglerentals.com. That's eaglerentals.com.
Keep winter cold outside with propane heat from GMB Energy. We provide cost-effective propane to cook meals and heat your home and water, even when the power goes out. For a limited time, save big with rebates, like up to $350 on Cozy Heat fireplaces and up to $450 on select Rinnai tankless water heaters. Visit one of our 9 locations. Call 855-LPG-PROS or visit gbenergy.com. GMB Energy, family-owned and NC Grow.
Color I see. Sweetheart, would you turn it down? The neighbors can hear us. Sweetheart, the neighbors can hear this.
Ladies, if your husband's favorite TV setting is way too loud, it might be time for a hearing test. If this sounds familiar, it's time to call Beltone in Mooresville and Cornelius. Call 877-HEAR-123 today. That's 877-HEAR-123. Turn down the TV and turn up the conversation. Call 877-HEAR-123 now.
You're doing your best, but past trauma, anxiety, or loss keeps showing up in your life. The Kohler Group's trained Christian therapists specialize in trauma, depression, anxiety, grief, and life transitions. We combine clinical expertise with spiritual depth to help you find lasting peace. Insurance and self-pay options are available, making support accessible. You don't have to walk this journey alone. Call or text 252-758-8636 today. Healing is possible, especially when God is part of the process.
Life is filled with uncertainties. Your career, your health, your relationships. So how can you plan for your future if separation and divorce are on your horizon? Eileen Stoner, financial advisor and certified divorce financial analyst at Morgan Stanley, can help. And the great thing is, she's right here in Lake Norman. To make an appointment with Eileen, call 704-896-9138. The use of the CDFA designation does not permit the rendering of legal advice by Morgan Stanley or its financial advisors, which may only be done by a licensed attorney. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney LLC, member SIPC.
Order up. The Serve Pickleball Plus Kitchen in Cornelius is where sport and food are paired perfectly with philanthropy. Come play, dine, celebrate, and connect. No membership required. All ages welcome. Eat, play, serve it forward. Visit theservepickleball.com.
The button pushing stops here.
WSIC. Local starts here.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks are taking a beating on worries about higher costs for tech companies. And also, there's a reading coming out tomorrow on inflation. Cisco Systems shares among those taking a hit after disappointing investors. Another setback, meantime, for the struggling housing market. Existing home sales in January fell by the most in nearly 4 years. Meantime, some good news could be ahead. Average long-term mortgage rates edging lower for the first time in a month to just 6.09%, according to Freddie Mac. Ford says it plans to put out 5 new vehicles by the end of this decade, all priced under $40,000. McDonald's shares bucking the trend and trading higher today on stronger than expected sales thanks to its $5 value meals. McDonald's also planning to introduce new beverages this year under the McCafe brand as it phases out the Cosmics concept. McDonald's plans to offer drinks including indulgent coffees, refreshers, energy beverages, and crafted sodas. Denise Pellegrini, Bloomberg Radio.
Don't miss a thing. Download the WSIC News app today. WSIC. Local starts here.
We're back with more ways to understand the most powerful computer you'll ever own. Your brain. Your Brain Matters, hosted by Dr. Tim Royer, only on WSIC. Local starts here.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We are gonna keep talking about anxiety. And typically during this section, we like to talk a little bit about either our own experiences or, I don't know, get a little personal. So last week, Doc was asking me about my anxiety, and we disclosed to the world about my tennis, what would we like to call that?
debacle?
Yes, the tennis
It
debacle.
wasn't a debacle.
That was related to
Spiral downhill.
anxiety. And so I told Doc, I said, you're up next. So,
Oh boy. Oh boy. Wait a minute. Hey, there's a technical difficulty. The
so
radio show is shutting down.
right.
Oh.
So now Doc is demonstrating his own anxiety by causing distractions into the space. So anyway, Doc is a person who comes off as being pretty cool, calm, and collected, and he has always been that way. But as we all know, we talked about, everybody experiences this emotion of anxiety or this feeling. And so it's important, like, for us to see, it comes in all shapes and sizes and
Yeah.
things like that. So, Doc, I was wondering, can you just describe when I say anxiety and how would you feel anxiety? Like, what pops into your head? When is the time you were anxious?
Yeah, I think probably the place I get it the most, I find that very cyclical. Like, I definitely get more anxious in the evening. Like if I go to sleep, usually I'm tired, so I'm going to sleep. But then if I'm waking up out of my sleep, early morning hours, I'll have a thought that's in my head that kind of races,
Mm-hmm.
and or I might be a little anxious before I go to sleep. But what I do notice is in the morning, I'm less anxious.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
like once I get up and moving, my brain, I think, from REM sleep has kind of solved some problems. Plus, I know physiologically I'm getting a burst of cortisol, so I have more adrenaline, which probably helps with that. And then when have less adrenaline at night, maybe I'm more susceptible for some of those things to creep in. But they're kind of waiting out there, like
Yeah.
different thoughts,
Yeah.
different kind of what ifs,
Yeah.
what if this happens? I say it's kind of the curse of being an entrepreneur.
Yes, I was just going to bring that up. Is like, hey, when you are owning your own business, like,
Yeah,
there's some of that 24/7 rumbling. And when you're going to try to do something that is non-conventional and you have to chart your own path, and the first one through the wall always gets bloody, blah, 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 that is anxiety producing.
yeah, absolutely. I think that I would say that I have a strength. I have a lot of weaknesses, but a strength in neuropsychologically, we would call it temporal sequencing, which is the ability to kind of like put things together and kind of see what's going to happen next,
Mhm.
And that's what I tend to do a lot of in the workspace, in technology,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
the reason that I think that we've developed this software, worked with this hardware, developed this whole system that nobody doesn't exist like this out there
Right.
with all these things together is kind of this ability to kind of look into the future and say this is what needs to happen, not well, this is okay, this is the way it should always be. I'm always looking to kind of disrupt it a little bit. But with that comes that ability to create a lot of what if scenarios, like, well,
Mhm.
what if this happens? What
Mhm.
if that happens? And mixed in there is this concept that I really want that I'm susceptible to, but I think everybody is I start to focus on the possibility of something happening versus the probability of something happening,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That is such a good template to work off of, because even though I experience anxiety differently than you
Yes,
experience it, we both experience it within that model of possibility versus probability.
absolutely. I've had some pretty significant losses in my life, with my father dying when I was very young. And so anything that has kind of a potential loss created to it, I think
Yeah.
I'm just a little bit more, I lean into, well, what if this happens?
Yes.
Like I can remember times when we would lose the family pet, and you would be a little less worked up about it, but me, it would kind of trigger me a little bit. And that's
Yeah.
probably because, we kind of get into these maladaptive patterns where something kind of triggers something to bring back a different emotion. And so for me, anything that kind of could be lost or something happening to the kids or, something like that um, can trigger that possibility.
Yeah.
Right. And then
Yeah.
I have to kind of like kind of plant my feet in the ground
Yeah.
and say, well, wait a minute, what is the probability?
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
like right now, let's take a simple example. Like if I took this room we're in with these 4 walls, right? Is it possible the ceiling could cave in?
Yes.
It is, right? I mean, it's possible, right? You know, it's possible the ceiling could cave in. But is it probable? No.
Right.
So if I get too stuck in the possibility,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden I want to escape this room. I want to
Right.
get away from this thing,
Yeah.
right? And it's like the ceiling's not going to cave in, Tim, statistically.
Yeah.
You know? So that starts to happen for me at times. And I would say, you know, like early on, you know, Amy kept just wanting to have these kids. And I'm like, I just want one child, right? You know? So she, you know, we got like 4 of these kids running around. I'm like, who's feeding these
How
kids?
did they get here?
Yeah, I have no idea.
I'm telling
I
you.
cannot figure that
Right?
out, what happened. But, you know, it's like kid after kid. Like, I can't feed these kids and clothe these kids.
Right.
You
In
know?
all seriousness, I do remember you saying, you know, that is something that you would wake up at night about, is
Yeah.
if you could provide for the actual needs of the family. Meanwhile, I was sleeping out of exhaustion.
Exactly.
So I wasn't awake. So there's how anxiety is different.
Yeah.
You know, you were awake because of the what ifs. And what do you think about that now that we're older? Like, do you think, what would you have said to your young self?
I would say that, and to my old self too, you know, I still do that, is that you're wasting a ton of energy, you know?
You're going to need that energy when you don't make the money and you have to work harder.
Exactly. So, you know, I think I'm creating too many scenarios in my head,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And I need to slow that down. But that's kind of the curse of this alpha or this creativity that happens, is like I can like develop all these scenarios, and sometimes I shouldn't be developing these scenarios. And so
Yeah.
that's where, you know, learning now it's different because, I mean, I still have anxiety, right? But it's different because I know what to do physiologically. Like,
Okay.
so I know, like, if I breathe,
Yes.
sometimes I even lean into the fact, you know, you're going to feel different in the morning. Just sleep it off. You know, just sleep
Yeah.
and see what happens,
Yeah.
you know? And the sun comes up and it's like, oh, that was a waste of time, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think I've learned, 1, over experience, but 2, by working upstream with my body and oxygen, and also, you know, physiologically what's going on, you know? Am I, the thing that you typically like to ask yourself, am I hungry? You know, like do I need some
Yes.
food? You know,
Yes.
am I upset about something? Am I lonely? Am I tired? You know, these are
Yeah.
the kind of the 4 things that you look at. They call that the HALT principle, and say, wait a minute, let's address those things first, and then see how I'm feeling.
Yeah. That is really good.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, interesting thing about my anxious feelings and your anxious feelings is that Doc and I actually see each other's brain waves when we do our
Yes.
training,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I possess a better score on the
Absolutely.
calm score than he does. But my variation is bigger and his variation stays pretty steady, which in the long run seems to make him the calmer person between the two of us.
But if I would know under pressure based on your EEG, you know, who would I pick to drive the car in a crazy scenario? I'd probably pick you, because, and in those situations where we have been under the gun, I go to you and what you're thinking, because I know that your brain's going to, at the end, be the strongest of the 2.
Don't go anywhere. Dr. Tim Royer will be right back with more ways to make your brain work for you. Your Brain Matters on WSIC. Local starts here.
Well, not quite as warm as the last few days, but still pretty comfy around Lake Norman. Partly cloudy, low 60s for our afternoon. We'll get chilly again overnight as we drop off into the low 30s. A couple of us around the lake may drop to around freezing. And then we're much cooler to finish out the work week for our Friday. Plenty of sunshine, but high temperatures only in the upper 50s. That's your forecast from the Surf Pickleball and Kitchen. I'm WSIC meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here's your WSIC community calendar,
Valentine's Day is officially on the horizon.
which means it's time to start planning, whether that's date night, girls' night, or just treating yourself.
Exactly. Let's take a look at what's coming up around Lake Norman.
We'll start in Statesville with a fun, feel-good event the whole family can enjoy. The Valentine's Day themed market happens Saturday, February 7th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at 109 East Water Street in downtown Statesville.
Shop local bakers, artists, and creators. Enjoy Valentine's vibes. And yes, there's even a mini petting zoo with baby goats.
Plus, a Valentine's-themed photo area, a special $5 strawberry matcha, and 20% of all sales benefit Bella's Backpacks, helping children in need.
If you're looking for a Valentine's weekend date that's a little more mysterious,
The Murder Mystery Dinner featuring Sigmund Theatrical takes place February 13th and 14th at 7 p.m.
this fully interactive experience turns a museum setting into a living whodunit where guests become detectives, uncovering clues hidden among priceless artifacts and marble halls.
It's elegant, suspenseful, and perfect for couples or friends who want something different this Valentine's weekend.
Find tickets and full details at mooresvilleevents.com/ourtownstage.
Looking ahead to Galentine's Day?
Grab your besties and your biggest tote. Ella Blue is hosting a Galentine's shopping event Friday, February 13th from 4 to 6 p.m. at 221 Griffith Street in Davidson, featuring boutique shopping, fun finds, and the perfect excuse to celebrate with friends.
For even more Valentine's events, local happenings, and community news,
Visit liveworkplaylkn.com today.
that's liveworkplaylkn.com.
Hi, this is Bob McIntosh with the McIntosh Law Firm in Davidson. Since 1997, we have been committed to providing our clients with competent, caring, and experienced legal services. Learn more at McIntoshLawFirm.com.
Brain Science Made Simple. Your Brain Matters, hosted by Dr. Tim Royer, continues on WSIC. Local starts here.
Okay, we're back for our final segment.
Wow, that was quick.
I know. It goes too fast. We were talking about some of our different experiences with anxiety, and we both were agreeing, like, we wanted to cover one last thing about that, which is there are some imposters for
Yes.
anxiety.
Yeah.
That sometimes you'll be like, I'm not anxious, but I am irritable
Right.
or frustrated, easily frustrated, angry,
Mm-hmm.
reactive, those kind of things. So those are kind of sneaky imposters, because if you just say like, oh, I need to stop being angry, or oh, I need to be more patient and less frustrated, you might not realize the underlying thing that's driving those is still there.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I can't speak to you, but I know kind of as a guy, and, don't mean to be like, it's just guys. But for me, I feel like it's easier to be irritated, frustrated, angry than to say, I'm anxious.
Oh, yeah.
I'm scared.
Nice.
I'm scared that you're going to, uncover this weakness in me, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so I think that whenever we feel those things that you just mentioned, we should ask ourselves, well, wait a minute, what is it that I'm anxious about? What am I scared is going to happen? What is fear? It's fear.
Yes.
Fear is what drives so many of these things. It's like the primary catalyst for these things.
Yep.
And we get lost a lot of times in the anger outburst, and he's got an anger problem,
Yep.
and this and that. Probably got a fear problem.
Yeah.
Probably scared about something.
Yes. I think I've heard you go back to that enough times to know, like, even the word stress is probably more about fear.
Yeah.
And stress is a pretty common word.
Right.
So it's more like asking ourselves about fear, really.
Yeah.
We're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about actual case studies, and we're going to focus on kids because Doc was a child psychologist originally and then kind of expanded everything from there. So he's really, really good with kids. And then, as you know, we had 4 kids, as he mentioned, purely driven by my desire for
Yeah,
children.
for children. Like I was fine,
So,
just us.
uh-huh.
That's it.
So we end up with all these kids. We work with kids. We pretty much love kids. So let's talk a little bit about kids and anxiety and what are you seeing?
Yeah. So actually, this fits nicely with what we were just talking about because I can't tell you how many times that I get the, you know, uh, Timmy has an anger problem, or Timmy is bullying on the playground,
Okay.
or having an anger outburst, or
Yep.
a temper tantrum,
Yep.
or Susie is, just very disruptive, right?
Yes.
And in the past, I would look at that and say, okay, what are we going to do behaviorally to modify this?
Yes.
But you can ask to the parent when they say that kind of stuff. I'm saying, what is Susie anxious about? What
Mhm.
is Timmy anxious? Because kids, it's more simple than it is with adults. We
Mhm.
come up with all these sophisticated defense mechanisms and layers that take years of therapy to get to. Kids are pretty straightforward. If they're
Mhm.
having an anger outburst, they're in a fight-flight mode,
Yes.
right? So
Yep.
they're in sympathetic,
Yeah.
right? Come on, we know all this stuff, right? They've activated the HPA axis, their adrenaline's flowing, and it's because they're anxious about something. They're worked up about something. And so they're not just being a bully to be a bully. They're something that they're nervous about or anxious about, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important with kids to identify that. And so one of the first things I do a lot of times is they don't have the vocabulary many times to identify these things. And
Mhm.
so we want to help build that vocabulary. So usually what our parents do is make a little log where, hey, each night let's both sit down, or let's all sit down and come up with 5 different feelings. And so we come up with like a list of 100 feelings over a few nights. And then each day, pick 2 feelings that we felt that day. Not fine all the time. I felt fine.
No,
Or okay.
no.
You have to pick something different on the list to expand the reach of the vocabulary so we can start to get deeper into these things and then kind of rate those. We'll talk more about that next week when we talk about rewire. But really understanding what the anxiety may contribute to, and it's pervasive in kids. It comes out in bedwetting, it comes out in wakenings at
I
night.
feel like this is a great time for me to bring up pooping.
Poop. Well, there you go. Right?
Yeah.
No, it has a lot to do with constipation.
Yes.
And we would deal with a lot in the GI clinic.
Stomach aches.
Yeah, definitely.
Even diarrhea.
Yep.
Like can go the whole other direction. So those you don't need words because you got other descriptives going on.
Right, exactly. And that can be anxiety based. Sometimes, not in all cases, but in some cases, there can be some type of trauma or loss that's happened that contributes to some regression and some anxiety. But, this is a very powerful emotion that this little human is trying to process, right?
Yeah.
And so their physiology can kind of come into that. And so it is very interesting when you look at developmentally how we express things. Little kids, it's the stomach, right?
Mhm.
And then as they get into adolescence, it can kind of be the head, like
Okay.
headache,
Oh,
this.
yeah.
And then as it goes to the next level, it can turn into things like back pain. Okay.
Mhm, mhm.
And so it's very interesting when you look at physiology. We carry, like the body keeps a score,
Yeah.
we carry that all with us. Another group I want to talk about is these kids that are a little brighter, right? Like kind of these prodigies or these just bright kids.
Yeah.
And in general, if you got, a couple parents that are pretty decent IQ, you probably got a pretty good IQ. And what happens a lot of times is those kids that their brain intellectually is a couple years ahead of what their body and their emotions are, because those emotions still on the kind of the same timeline. So they can understand things about tsunamis and the Titanic and the weather, these things that are like very complicated as a 7-year-old, but then they can't handle the emotion related to some of those things, or they learn something from history that they get stuck on that was a trauma or something.
Yeah.
So that's very difficult for intellectually advanced children to deal with anxiety. Anxiety becomes a major problem in that group.
We may have experienced that under our own roof.
Yes, we
Um,
have a couple times.
And it's pretty funny because you're like, as a parent, like, well, we should keep exposing them to new things because they're like a sponge. And in the process of doing that, we probably have produced a little unwanted anxiety in that exact scenario that you're talking about.
Yeah, where they're processing more than you actually realize. They're listening to the conversations. They can understand that there's some type of money stress in the home, or that there's marital stress, or there's something else going on. And they're like little sponges. I mean, kids are like thermostats. You want to read what's going on in the family system? Watch the 6-year-old. You will figure it all out pretty quick, right? And so helping kids manage that gets us to looking at, well, what is very helpful for kids? And regardless of what systems are out there, I'm going to get back to this over and over again. Boundaries are so important for kids. They are not early on, they're in a black and white kind of concrete operation stage. They're not dealing with, well, what about the abstract meaning of life kind of stuff? They're dealing with kind of right and wrong and black and white, and how we separate that for them is very important as a parent, is that we're creating structure for them. I talked about the 4 walls in this room. Kids need 4 walls, okay? If they lean over and they push on the wall and the wall moves, that is not enjoyable for a child. They might want to move that because that, seems somewhat interesting, but if the wall moves, they don't have any emotional security.
Right.
And parents, we're the walls. We're the predictability. And sometimes we move so much, we get too flexible, too permissive, that we actually instill anxiety because the child is trying to figure out their environment and they're pushing on the walls on purpose. That's part of development, figuring your identity. But we can move those walls. And when we move them, like we don't stick to our rules or what we said or the structure of routine, then that can instill anxiety in children. And we have to be able to kind of hold to those. Now, that's going to change. I wrote a paper in graduate school about how parenting style actually has to change as the child develops, because the child first sees things concretely. But then they start to move into more this abstract space where they can now reason. And if the parenting, you're still stuck in the old phase while they're moving on, then that can be disruptive for them. Now you're just butting heads, right? Because they're now looking at the principles behind the policies.
Okay.
And you should be doing that too as a parent. And then you move into a stage where they're not necessarily your child anymore. They're an adult. And you now have to create almost like this permissive style where it's like, hey, you got to figure some of this stuff out yourself. I can't be that concrete parent like you were when you were 6. So that's...
Man, that is complicated because the parent is on their own journey.
Yes, they are.
So it's like you think you just figured it out and then you're moving on to the next stage. So very, very complicated. Great stuff. I think I want to unpack a little bit more next time we're together. But it is time for the 2-minute drill, and we're doing it in 30 seconds.
I forgot about it.
2-minute drill, Doc.
Okay, so I want you to think about possibilities, and how about me almost forgetting this? Possibilities and probabilities. I want you to create 2 columns, okay, and go through the different things in your life that are creating anxiety, and see how much of it is a possibility versus a probability, and kind of list these things out and do that kind of visual demonstration of it so you can see it on paper. Remember, possibilities and probabilities, okay? And then see how that ties into your anxiety over time.
Perfect. Let's go do it.
Let's go and do Your Brain Matters.
Great radio doesn't end here. Catch the full episode and dive or into our archives on the WSIC News app.
WSIC 105.9 FM, 100.7 FM, 1400 AM, Statesville, Lake Norman's home for local talk radio. WSIC, local starts here.